Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Geredeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. And since we are live, also with Kevin Noon today. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we've got It's Just Me, Tim 79 already telling jokes in the comments. So I'm great. This is gonna be obviously gonna be a great show. So oh boy, we got Urban Meyer jokes in the comments already. It's gonna be a great show, guys.
And we'll just take
Noon,
that one down.
please be quick on the draw on all of these Urban Meyer jokes. Thank you very much. Kevin, how's it going?
Going well. A little different doing one pre-lunchtime than we've done these at dinner time. We've done them at lunchtime. Looks like we might have the wild crowd in today once everybody populates the show.
Yeah, it's for a lot of people, it's like the last Friday before the holiday break, and things are a little bit wild, I guess would be a good term for it. And so we are here for you. Not super wild. Remember, it's still just 11:30 in the morning. Let's calm down. Uh, Before we get the show started, Kevin and Tom, I think it's time to play America's favorite game, which is where I give Kevin and Tom.
A third grader.
I'm gonna give you old timey Ohio State names, and you have to give me the year that they played within 3 years. Either way, I'm gonna start with Kevin. Kevin, your name. Furl Mengus.
A classic.
Furl. Can I have that used in a sentence?
Furl Mengus used to play football at Ohio State.
Jeez.
If it helps you, his name is short for Furlap. I don't know if that's
like
true
a furlap
like a
sack.
Yes. 2018. Do you not remember Furl? Come on.
No, I don't.
Actually, that's a name that I made up, and it's a classic because it could not sound any old timier than Furl Mengus. No, that is a fake name. I just wanted to throw that out there because I put Tom through that one a while back as well. So,
I'm glad
congratulations,
to be part of the
Kevin.
hazing. I'm glad to be part of the hazing.
So, want to thank everybody for joining us. I think the big news, as we all wait for the Bahamas Bowl to start at 12 p.m. Cameron Brown, cornerback, announced yesterday that he would be returning to Ohio State. This is a pretty big deal. They needed a second corner to step up next to Denzel Burke. This, for me, was the ideal decision among cornerbacks to return for Ohio State. I think Cameron Brown is the better of he and Seven Banks if he can just stay healthy, and that's been his issue all along. But Tom, getting Cam Brown back, it's a great start to a secondary that is going to have some moving parts and moving pieces, but you've got two solid corners. I think the young guys will step up as well, and this makes me feel better about the situation at corner. Just getting Cam Brown back, not even knowing if he's going to be healthy all season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you get half of a season out of Cam Brown next year, that's substantially better than whatever would be behind Cam Brown. And you know, it's very difficult for me to make a real firm judgment on Seven Banks' abilities this year. You know, there was a talk about him being a first round pick last year, and I never really saw that. But Seven Banks was never 100% this year, and you kind of get the sense that maybe Cam Brown wasn't ever 100% this year either, just because it was like he was in, he was out, he was in, he was out. And if you're if you're playing some weeks and not playing other weeks, that tells me you're never truly 100%. And, you know, he blew out his Achilles last year. So he's still, just a year off of the Achilles thing because that was at the Penn State in 2020. And, you have seen with Tough Borland, with Master Teague, with Justin Hilliard, it takes that full year to really be 100% after the Achilles. I remember Tough Borland talking about that. I think Master Teague too, where, that first year, you're just not quite there. Like, it's better. You're healed, but you're not completely back to normal. And I think that's kind of what Cam Brown was this year. So if you have another year with that Achilles then being, potentially back to 100%, and he can stay on the field with all the other stuff he's had going on this fall, then that's potentially an enormous shot in the arm for this Ohio State defense. Because, again, this is not a guarantee that he's going to be on the field for 15 games next fall and they're going to win the national championship. But whatever you get out of him is going to be better than what you have from other guys. Because, next year's Denzel Burke is still only a second-year starter, and whoever else they'd be running out there outside of him and Seven Banks is going to be a first-year starter. And just the learning curve there at corner takes a while. So if you could add a veteran who's got some real ability to that corner room, absolutely. That is a monster piece of news for Ohio State. Frankly, I think that might be better news than, everyone's all hung up on Eli Ricks. I think getting back a healthy Cam Brown potentially next year is bigger for Ohio State than if they had landed Eli Ricks.
Yeah, I think this is a 5-star signee on signing day that you land the day after. Kevin, what do you think this means for the younger guys? I see some panic on the message board, which that's where you can find panic there on Twitter.
I thought you found it at the disco.
Not me. I'm more of a rock show person, mosh pit type of thing. But what is this? Is this the end of the line for J.K. Johnson or Jordan Hancock?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we don't know what the philosophy of Jim Knowles and whatever the defensive staff looks like is going to be about rolling 3 corners, rolling 2 corners, how you're going to do this. I mean, if you're doing a 4-2-5, I mean, how do how does that set up at, at various points under certain situations? No, I think that we're talking about guys that are still very young in the program, and you want the job, go out, go win it. Go win the job. There's no guarantee that Cam Brown is going to be able to play 12 games, 14 games, 15 games, as Tom had mentioned. So get out there and seize the moment. If you're not in a position where you feel like you can go seize the moment, then maybe the portal's for you and you're going to have to go look around. But I'm going to tell you this, everybody's looking for guys at corner. But with that being said, you're going to still have to go somewhere and win the position. There's not just somebody out there saying, we have 0 corners in a room, like 0. So you're going to come in and get it by default. You're still going to have to go in and beat guys out for the position, plus 2, potentially go somewhere else and learn a new system. So I don't know. I don't play Twitter detective, and every emoji that goes up there, I go in and do an 8-page incident report and try and figure out exactly what it means, because you don't know. There are very few emojis out there that just really don't leave a lot of interpretation, and this isn't one of them. An hourglass. It doesn't mean anything. It just could mean it's my time, whatever. And again, with this not being the 8 p.m. show, I'm not going to go into the emojis that leave no interpretation.
Thank you for that. Getting Cam Brown back, and he has played in the slot in the past in his career. Does he can he be a nickel or option, or I think he's an outside guy, of course, but all Jalen Johnson and Jordan Hancock and even Legend Cavazos have to look at is this year it was supposed to be Seven Banks and Cam Brown, and Denzel Burke was the opening day starter, so it can be done. And you only they have to look to their left or their right to see a teammate who has done it. So it's not like it's an impossible thing. And more than one guy will play, as they saw all season long. Ryan Watts started the season opener at corner for Ohio State, if I recall correctly. And so there's plenty of possibilities there. Looking through some of these questions, I do want to set Tom off. He hasn't spoken for a couple of minutes. El Suzabo. We all saw the Chargers last night tried to use analytics to win a game, and analytics failed, Tom. Analytics lost the game, a game that they could have won if they had just chosen to kick field goals instead. This is proof to me, Tom, that analytics isn't always right, and frankly, can also be wrong.
Mm-hmm. So the genesis of this conversation this morning was a tweet from Mike Lombardi, who, if you're a Browns fan, you know how smart Mike Lombardi is. Of all the brains in the NFL, he might be one of the smoothest. Here's his tweet: an almost playoff game, and you decide to turn down points because something called analytics says it's smart. You deserve to lose last night. More proof. Each game is different, and each situation is a standalone. No chart or some kid in a basement playing Madden can help. Okay, so here's how this works.
Yes, let the hate flow through you. Yes.
Analytics, when we talk about analytics is just if you make this choice, which is not necessarily the conventional wisdom choice, you increase your likelihood of winning the game ultimately. It does not mean if you go for it on 4th and 1, you're guaranteed to win the game. That's the kind of incredibly stupid reductionist logic and thinking that you see in so many facets of life these days. Think of it like blackjack. You know how in blackjack there's certain ways you can play the game where you can give yourself perhaps a little bit of an edge over the house, or at least kind of even the odds with the house. If you do the things you're supposed to do, you increase your likelihood of winning. Not to 100%. It is possible to play a hand exactly correctly and lose. That is a possibility. It is also possible to do something incredibly stupid and also win. Like, that's also possible. Like, it's possible to kick a field goal on 4th and 1 from the 1-yard line and win the game by 3 points or less. And then everyone goes, oh, look, see, that was the right decision. You're conflating process and results. A good process does not guarantee positive results, but it increases your chance of positive results. A bad process does not guarantee bad results, but it increases your likelihood of bad results. Kicking field goals. How many times have we all seen teams in the first half kick a bunch of field goals and then everyone says, oh, boy, this is going to catch up with them later, not scoring touchdowns. Like, this is stuff that you've kind of known inherently for a long time, and now there's just sort of math to back it up. So, there were people this morning explaining to me that actually analytics lost that game last night. It's like, no, analytics just increase your likelihood of winning. You can make the right call analytically and go for it on 4th and 1. But if you have a bad play call or a guy drops the ball, that doesn't mean it was the wrong call. It just means it didn't work out that time. You're just trying to do something that gives you an incremental increase in your likelihood of success, in your likelihood of winning the game. That's the whole point of it. But everyone is so dug in on, well, actually the old school way is so much better. And, look, here's 4 times it didn't work. And so therefore it was the wrong decision. It's like, well, Ryan Day has lost games at Ohio State where he went for it on 4th down a bunch and didn't make it. The Oregon game this year, he went for it on 4th down a bunch and didn't make it. Ryan Day also has lost games where he was way too conservative and kicked way too many field goals and punted in times he shouldn't have punted. Go back and watch the 2019 Fiesta Bowl. Kicks a ton of field goals on relatively short 4th downs in the first half. Has the ball with a chance to seal the game with a 4th and 3 or 4th and 4 at like the plus 45-yard line with a couple minutes left. Ends up punting the ball away. And, you have the option to, you can play it more aggressively and potentially just seal the game right there. But that's not what he did. You are not, you can play it exactly the right way statistically and not necessarily win. You can play it the wrong way statistically and somehow win despite yourself. But yes, every time someone does the wrong thing, that's the traditional conventional wisdom thing, and it works. It's like, see, analytics is wrong. It's like, I'm not sure you actually understand what the conversation we're having is.
Well, and that's why when coaches are so reticent to go the analytics way, it's because, well, if we don't get it, I'm going to be blamed. I'm going to be looking like an idiot. However, if you do the traditional thing and don't get it, it's like, well, that's just football. I don't look like an idiot because I did it. Everybody else has done it before me. And it always takes, for football to move forward, for all sports to move forward, it takes a forward-thinking person. And you keep doing the same thing that everybody else does, you're still stuck in 1974 with Vince Lombardi and whatever, and you're just running it on 3rd and 8 up the middle because that's what football is. And so, Tom, thank you for that. Touching on a few of these questions, is DeMario back next year too? No, I believe AARP rules will not allow him back. So, no, that won't be. He will not be back.
If you're older than Marcus Freeman, you can't play.
You're not allowed to be older than the coach and still play. Do you think Master Teague gets drafted what round? I don't even know that Master Teague knows. Like, I expect he walked on senior day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's heading to the NFL or heading to the portal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect him to be back simply because of the room, assuming Mayan Williams is back. Master Teague did not have the year that he wanted to have this year, and certainly had some injury issues, and he was up and down. So I don't know. Maybe it's a time for a fresh start. I think he needs another year in college before going to the NFL right now. He would be wise to use that and then be that fifth-year guy somewhere. And, Michigan State, they need a running back right now. Kenneth Walker just hit the portal.
They got one. They got another transfer. So, and Ohio State's active in the transfer portal right now looking at running backs, I'm being told, as well. So I'm expecting to see some sort of shakeup in the room, maybe even deeper than just Master Teague. It wouldn't surprise me maybe to see another back leave. I know people have tried to say potentially Evan Pryor. Of the backs not named Trevion Henderson, Pryor's the one that makes the least amount of sense to me. Again, I don't like putting people's names into the portal without them putting their names into the portal, but we can kind of go through the room and say, Marcus Crowley just really, he's kind of had a hard luck career in terms of injuries, but maybe a fresh start somewhere else. There have been moments where Mayan Williams has looked a little frustrated not getting the amount of carries that he'd like to get, so you wonder what's going on there. Jahmyr Gibbs, the former Georgia Tech running back, he's been somebody who's been mentioned. I've heard a couple other names that I'm not going to speak into existence right now that are being looked at. But I think that running back room could look very different in 22.
And the Bahamas Bowl is about to kick off as we're recording that. Middle Tennessee State is playing in that game. Middle Tennessee State located in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Master Teague from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That's one that, I mean, if he went to Middle Tennessee State, he would be like a 1,600-yard back. I feel like he would just completely dump truck people at that level. So,
and you could get an NIL deal from Toots down there in Murfreesboro.
We don't know. We don't have any clue on what Teague's plans are. But I mean, the fact that he walked is sort of indicative of the fact that he's not. He's at least considering leaving. I would think that a transfer somewhere else is more likely than entering the draft. But we'll see. He's he's someone that I'm sure Ohio State would love to have back, and it's just a question of, does he want to come back, or does he want to try and go somewhere where he can kind of be the main bell cow? Because I think there are plenty of schools that would love to have Master Teague. It's kind of the same boat that they're in with the quarterbacks. There's a lot of quarterbacks in that room last year that could have been the number one guy at a lot of spots, and some of them are probably going to be the number one guy in other spots. So that's that's how the portal has tended to work for Ohio State, and sometimes it works when guys leave, and sometimes it doesn't.
Is Diamante Trayanum one of those names possibly in the portal? The former Ohio high school player who went to Arizona State.
Have you been reading my text messages again?
No, I have not, but I know certainly Ohio State liked him as a linebacker, and he wanted to play running back. I think he showed he can play running back and do some things, so that might be a guy to keep an eye on. I did see a name pop up in the portal, I think, yesterday, and that was Indiana cornerback Reese Taylor, which was kind of interesting. He's a former starter, and Ohio State wants 8 corners in their cornerback room, which they have now. But if Sevyn Banks leaves, is that a guy that they would target? I don't know that he would want to vie for a starting job rather than just going somewhere where he would definitely start. But Kevin, would Zach Evans be one of those names in the running back portal for Ohio State, given I'm not saying he's got a lot of baggage or anything like that.
No, he's got one of those old-timey Titanic steamer trunks with him or whatever, apparently. No, he's not a name that I've heard mentioned there, but certainly Chip Trayanum is somebody that I've heard that there could be a love connection coming here soon with that one. But we'll see. It just needs 2 and 2. Tom's got that one right there. We'll see, but it's interesting because the old joke of you won't know who's on the team if you don't have a roster. We need to get the roster updated there on Buckeye Scoop because I expect to see a good amount of movement. Everybody worries about how are they going to fit the 85. Well, we still haven't seen all the names leave. I think we're going to see more than just the one or two transfers in. I mean, Ohio State certainly got Noah Ruggles, certainly got Palaie Naote last year. That high water mark of 2 transfers. I'm going to take the over on 2.5. I think that they'll have more than 2.5.
Yeah, it might be over on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Yeah, and as far as the number of spaces, Ryan Day talked about that this week, and it was like, well, how do you do your scholarship math? And he just kind of laughed. He was like, yeah, that's a good question, because with the portal, you've got guys leaving in the middle of the season. You've got guys leaving before the bowl game. You're almost certainly going to have someone leave after the bowl game. And then you get through spring ball. Spring ball is the time when you traditionally saw a lot of guys transfer, when you had the spring awakening and you went through spring ball, and it's like all of a sudden, like, boy, this is my 3rd year here, and I'm still with the 3rd team. Like, this may just not happen. So you're going to have this just flux with guys all the way through, potentially even into fall camp. I mean, this is now, transfers out are kind of a year-round thing. So bringing guys in, the transfer portal is always going to be a net negative in terms of numbers for Ohio State. They're not the kind of program that's going to bring in 15 kids and lose 10. They're the kind of program that's going to lose 8, 10, 12, whatever the number is, and bring in 2, 3, 4. But it's going to be finding specific spots, because they have guys. They're going to have a lot more guys who are talented players who other teams look at and go, well, you could start for us. And you're buried on the depth chart at Ohio State because they have so many other good players that, for an Alabama, for an Ohio State, for a Clemson, for a Georgia, the portal is always going to be kind of a net negative. And there are going to be teams, the teams that are a little lower on, lower rungs in the sport. Those are going to be the ones that are bringing in more guys potentially than they're sending out.
Super chat from Jordan Kapler. Favorite Christmas gift or most memorable? Kevin, you want to go first?
I was really excited when I got my ColecoVision as a kid. We had Pong. I'm old enough that we had the old standalone Pong in the mid '70s, and that was all well and good. But it was a big operation to get. Mom didn't want any part of setting that up. We had the one TV at that point. I don't want to set that up, so we didn't get to play it that much. At some point, my parents got a TV in their bedroom, and then I got the ColecoVision, and they left it set up in there. So I think that was probably either that or my first bicycle. And I know that that's really cliche, the first bicycle, but it's cliche for a reason, because I think there's a lot of truth behind it. So I don't know. I'm still kind of a tech nerd, so I'm going to still say the ColecoVision.
But Kevin, you say that was your present. Your parents kept it in their room. That was theirs.
Well, because I didn't get a television in my own room until college. So, it took a while for that to happen.
Did you take the ColecoVision with you?
No, I belong to a group on Facebook of ColecoVision enthusiasts, and I'm like the only person in the group who doesn't have one. I don't know what my mom did, if she threw it away. Normally, a lot of times she would donate stuff to the church or whatever. So all of my old systems, anything from the Sega Genesis on, I still have. I'm very selfish. I don't share. Yeah. But anything prior to that is long gone. But I think I have my Genesis. I have my Dreamcast. I did give away my PS2 to my sister and her family because my niece really wanted one at the time, and right when the 3 came out, I kicked the 2 down. But other than that, I still have them all in a trunk in the basement.
Tom,
Kevin gave me a lot of time to think there, and I'm still kind of going back and forth between a few options. He reminded me of the time we got the Nintendo. We were one of the later people to get the Nintendo. We didn't get it until the year that they came out with the triple game that came with it, where it was Super Mario Brothers, but it was also Duck Hunt, but it was also World Class Track Meet. So we had the Power Pad. It was 1989 or so. That was a good Christmas. I remember the gift I was most excited to receive was an electric football set. That was a couple years
yeah.
earlier than that. That would have been 1987 probably, because they gave you the two teams that were the year before in the Super Bowl. Those are the two teams they gave you. So I got the Broncos and the Giants, and I was a big Giants fan growing up, so that was very exciting. And then you turned on electric football. It's like, oh, this doesn't work at all like the TV shit. It makes it look like it's supposed to. But I have always been an experiences person more than a stuff person. So I remember getting like Hartford Whalers tickets for Christmas, or and then when I got a little older, I would give my brothers Hartford Whalers tickets. So that was always something fun and something to look forward to.
A lot like Kevin with all of the stuff being thrown out. I could tell you, there's probably hundreds of dollars worth of Transformers in the Henry County landfill that have been dumped there over the years. Unfortunately, once I moved out, all of my stuff went to the garage, and eventually the stuff in the garage went to the landfill. But am I bitter? No, of course not. The first Nintendo we ever got, we were also one of the later ones. Our Nintendo didn't even come with a Mario or a Duck Hunt, but my mom did bought a couple of other games, and I played that all day, all night, whatever. My favorite of all time, though, is still my Darth Vader case in 1981. And all the Darth Vader case it's a bust of Darth Vader that opens, and you can put your Star Wars guys in it.
I thought you just kept Darth Vader in it. I wasn't
No,
sure.
no.
Thanks for the clarification.
Is it made of carbonite?
Just plastic, but it's black plastic. And I wanted it in, I would say it was probably 1980. I really, really wanted it. I woke up early to check under the tree, and it wasn't there. And it was a devastating Christmas. So then the next year, I wake up early again, and then I see, because it's a Darth Vader bust, so there's no real way to wrap it without knowing what it is. And so I saw it, and I was very happy. And really, it's not like a play set or anything. It's just you put your guys in it, and then you close it or you open it. And it's like, but it was very, very important. And I've looked on eBay for them, and they're still available if you want them. They look a lot smaller now than they did when I was a kid, though.
When I got my Nintendo, we had the crappy robot. We had the launch one that had that robot in there that did nothing with like the little gyroscope or whatever. That was like the very first Nintendo one that came out had this robot that was completely pointless.
You're talking about trying to disguise the Darth Vader. Are you fans of wrapping Christmas presents in a misleading way? Like my brother-in-law gave my wife a gift card one year, and he wrapped it in like a bunch of newspaper and then put that in a box and then wrapped more newspaper around that and put that in a bigger box. And it was like, it ended up as an enormous box, and it was a gift card inside. Like that was it. It was just a gift card. Are you fans of misleading wrapping, or is it just like you should be able to look at the presents and shake the box and figure out what's
That's a lot.
I've done something like that before. I took a box and put packing peanuts in there, and like under the flap of it, I taped a gift card in there once. But I mean, I didn't throw anything off with weight or anything else. But I just thought it would be funny. And I think I turned like 22 at that point, and I've never. I'm lucky. I'm lucky if I actually wrap the presents, and generally there's more Scotch tape on the present than there is paper. Speaking of that, I'm going sometime between now and the 25th. I'm going to have to figure out how to wrap the gifts that are still sitting in Amazon boxes right now.
Well, that is the most time we've ever spent on a super chat, so you got your money's worth on that one. Thank you for that. I saw somebody asking about opt-outs. Right now, there aren't any. However, after watching the NFL game last night, wouldn't be surprised if we see some. Like Garrett Wilson has been, still deciding, and Chris Olave is still deciding. I imagine if somebody is on the fence and they see what happened to Donald Parham Jr. last night, where he went down and was, had a serious issue, I wouldn't be surprised if that is enough to push somebody over the fence in trying to decide whether or not to play. But we'll hear more about that once they finally make their decisions. I don't know. It's you can understand after seeing that, and you can understand without seeing that, why somebody may not play in it. And I can't really blame them. And this is now it's no longer new. It's the norm it's what is expected because we talk about it. And so nothing new that I know of right now, unless you guys know something more.
No, and I mean, you go back to like the Jalen Smith injury in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, the Notre Dame linebacker. Like that's kind of the cautionary tale here, where it's like you can't really get on people for like if someone starts opting out of a playoff game, like that's one thing, but anything else, like the trade off of playing one more time and going to get the Rose Bowl gift suite or whatever, like I can understand there's another side of that. Like as much as it would be fun to watch Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave one more time, I get it. And if they do opt out, then it's just an opportunity to watch some of the younger guys and get a little bit of a head start on the 2022 Buckeyes. So, either way, I can't really muster up a lot of angst over that.
Everybody talks about the insurance policy that's out there. That's just pennies on the dollar compared to what an NFL contract is going to be if you're a first round type of guy or whatever. Yeah, Jalen Smith certainly is the first cautionary tale that I tell people when he got hurt and slid in the draft and ended up in a good situation with Dallas. But is he out of football now at this point? He went to Green Bay, I believe, and I don't think it was ever activated, and then he got cut, and I don't know. I mean, if you're a former, a guy that was supposed to be a top 15 type of pick, I don't know if you're going to be sitting around riding around on a practice squad at this point. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there.
Yeah, and I'm just looking through these comments. A lot of people still have some memorable gifts. So remember, it is always better to receive than to give. Apparently, nobody's talking about the gifts that they've given other people that were memorable. It's all stuff that we got. I got this. I got that. So what a bunch of selfish listeners and viewers.
Well, I don't think it was. It just says I guess it could be left open for interpretation. It doesn't say received, but I think we all naturally go to receiving there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the worst gift I gave was an engagement ring. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. If my wife's on.
No, she already mentioned that one. That was the worst. I guess we should talk a little bit about Urban just because he's being asked about DK here. Will OSU keep Urban at a distance for a few years until he's less radioactive? Like, I don't expect to see him around the program. He may stop by, but it's not. I mean, I saw somebody ask me on Twitter, will they make room for him on the coaching staff? And it's like, well, they already have a wide receivers coach. And that's what Urban did when he was a position coach. So no, I don't expect him to be anywhere prominently in the program. I'm sure he will stop by, but why would you come back to Ohio in the winter is another question I would ask. Stay in Florida for the winter.
Shelley managed to escape Ohio's winters. I don't think she's coming back. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
No. I don't expect that. Maybe keep the house in Ohio in Dublin and come back for the summers. But
that's sold.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's like I don't expect him to be back in any. He'll visit like maybe more than he did Florida. Obviously, because he was busy working, but like I don't know, Tom. I don't expect him to be any part of the program any more than Luke Fickell or Jim Tressel. Maybe a little bit more than those guys because they're at their own thing. But it's like I don't plan on when we're at the WAC doing interviews or whatever seeing Urban there on the practice field.
No, I mean he may be in Columbus a little bit just because his son-in-law and daughter are in Columbus, but other than that, no, he's not. I don't think he's going to be around the program at all because. Go back to Siesta Key and hang out and spend a year, and you don't constantly have to coach. I do think he's ultimately going to get back into coaching. I don't think he should, but I don't think his ego is going to allow him to keep, have that be the end of his story. I think the best thing he could do would just go back to being in TV, like take a year off, then go back to Fox or wherever. You were very good at TV. It was low stress. Go do that for a while and go do that for 10 years and then retire. But I don't think his ego is going to let him go out on that being the end of his career.
No, that's exactly. I agree with what Tom said there 1,000,000%. You don't want that to be the last part of your legacy. I mean, I understand you can go back into TV and say, well, that's part of my legacy, but he's in a position where the interim coach in Jacksonville could win more games than he won. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen. That Jags team's pretty bad, but yeah, there's just no way that all coaches have a pretty big ego, and just going off on that note is not the way that any of them want to ride off into the sunset. And I Urban is somebody who thinks very much about his legacy, and that's not how you want to end your legacy.
Yeah, I just wonder if he would be. I heard Brett McMurphy on the radio, and he's like, I talked to 70 ADs, and like 80% of them from the Power Five said they wouldn't hire him, and more from the Group of Five said they would. Would he lower himself to a Group of Five job, knowing that that's where he got his start, the Bowling Green and Utah? Utah was a Group of Five at that point because they weren't even part of the Group of Six when the Big East was a thing, and maybe he can find something there. I just wonder if a Power Five is going to reach out for him. Not, I don't think they would next year, but the year after that, it wouldn't. The most surprising thing would be if he doesn't coach again to me, because that's how else do you see him? How else does he see himself? He's not ready for retirement. He's clearly that's why he got back into the NFL. And I saw, let me see here, somebody saying, did anyone really think?
Can I jump
go
in
ahead.
really quick with a thought on there? But I take what Brett McMurphy says with Urban Meyer with a huge
Yes.
grain of salt, because this is how the question was probably asked, if it was asked in the first place. You wouldn't hire that Urban Meyer jerk, would you? I mean, let's be realistic. There was some bad blood between those two, and I'm not going to put a lot of credence into anything McMurphy puts out there that's not about Louisiana and Texas Tech have signed a contract to play games in 31 and 32.
No, I agree. And still my favorite McMurphy memory is the 2018 Big Ten media days when all of the Zach Smith drama is going on, and McMurphy is like 10 minutes late for Urban's side table thing where we all talked to him, and he laid everything out for 10 minutes, and then McMurphy finally shows up and he wants to ask about it, and Urban's like, I already talked about it, we've moved on. And it's like the only reason McMurphy went to Chicago was to get this information, and he was 10 minutes late to the session. And it's like, well, that's why you got to be on time. So, before we get to the super chat, Troy V, did anyone really think he was going to succeed with the Jags? Come on, man. I kept waiting for him to have some illness to get out. Turned out being a jerk to work this time. I don't think anybody expected him to win this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have the foundation, you've got your quarterback, you've got a bunch of draft picks, it's not unreasonable to think that things would have eventually gotten better. And I do think that's a program, a franchise you can win with. The ownership is solid, and it has all of the makings. It's not the best city or whatever, but there's enough there to succeed. But Urban, just every step of the way, was unable to get out of his own way at times, and this was it was time. And because who knows what else was going to go wrong throughout all of this.
Yeah, when he took the job, it was like the pieces were there, but you knew he was going to have to change. Like, you knew his college gimmick wasn't going to work in the NFL. That was very clear. And you knew he was going to have to change the way he was looking at losses. And because, after losses in Ohio State, he would be like catatonic. And it's like, you're going to lose. Even if you're a good NFL coach, you're going to lose 5-6 games a year. So you're going to have to change your mentality. And you're going to have to change the way you manage people and all that kind of stuff, because these are athletes who are in some cases making more money than you are and can tell you to go sit on it. And I thought, if he can do that, yeah, he could be successful. As soon as he hired Chris Doyle, I was like, oh, okay, so this just isn't going to work. Okay, so this is going to be a disaster. Okay, now I see it. Because that was very much like a read the room, man. Like, this is a dude who just got hired for giving a bunch of Iowa players rhabdo, and also, potentially being racially insensitive around players. And it's like, that's the dude you're gonna hitch your wagon to, like, months after he just got fired. Like, what? That was a moment that was like, oh, okay. So he thinks that he can just kind of like swing it around a little bit, and I'm Urban Meyer, so of course I can do whatever I want. No one's going to say no. And it's like, no, actually, at this level, people are going to say no. and you kept seeing these little things, and it was just like, oh, okay, so this is just not going to work. Okay, so he's refusing to learn any of the lessons he needed to learn, and so yeah, so at that point it was like, oh no, okay, there was a way this potentially works out, but very quickly it was apparent like, no, he's not going to be willing to change the stuff he needs to change in order for this to work out.
I do appreciate the way he can blame people he hired for being incompetent. I do like that. I'm going to incorporate that into my everyday life. Like when, we're all three here on this show, and I could be like, you guys are terrible. You're idiots. You suck.
Sit on a potsy.
Who's the moron who hired all you idiots?
The GM.
Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm. Is that how it works? I don't think that's how it works.
Get to the super chat from Robert Clore.
He's got
actually like this. Okay, I actually like this crap, but I wish I was in the Rose Bowl soon enough. Tickets are still available. Flights are not cheap unless you're in California. Then they're probably cheaper. If you fly from LA to Pasadena, you have more money than you need, and you shouldn't complain. If you're just taking the chopper to the Rose Bowl up the hills. Another super chat from Robert. I forgot sarcasm. Go Blue. Take your money, losers. Merry Christmas. Go Blue. Take your money,
I was trying
losers.
to figure out the context around the first one, and I'm like, would rather go to the Rose Bowl than what? What is the other option? Like,
yeah, okay. Right. I thought he was talking about the show. Like, I like the show. I like this crap show, but I would rather be at the Rose Bowl. It's like, oh, okay. Yes. I apologize. Didn't realize I was a Michigan fan because all of the words were spelled correctly.
It's break time at Walmart.
Oh man, this is a good one. JD on C-Bus. Tony Khan, who's Shad Khan's son, needs to bring Urban over to AEW wrestling. It's on TNT, and Urban would be a real solid heel manager. Urban, that was like the highlight of Urban's time in Jacksonville. Wasn't he on some AEW pay-per-view when they ran it in Jacksonville?
Yes, he was.
I think that was basically the highlight of his time.
It was him and like Charlie Strong, I think, were in the little promo or whatever.
Yeah, they were in the office when Chris Jericho and somebody else that they were fighting came in there, and they took one of Urban's laptops and smashed it over another guy's back or something like that, and Urban dropped a holy S on him, and so yes, that was a good time. Yes, certainly the crowning moment of Urban's time in Jacksonville. Or did they tie a game this year? Would that be the other crowning moment? I forget.
They won a game in London, and then they beat someone 9-6, I think. So I mean, lots of highlights to choose from.
Future coach of the XFL Tampa Bay Vipers, Urban Meyer. I don't think XFL is for him. Maybe when Bob Stoops goes back to the XFL again, then Urban can go to Fox for a year. Urban was much better on Fox than Bob Stoops. Not that I watched much of it this year, but I watched it last year when Urban was on it, and he was very, very good on that show. But I don't think they can fire Bob Stoops to bring in Urban Meyer at this point. It's going to be a quiet year for Meyer, I think, next year. So I think we've talked about Urban Meyer enough for the day. Ooh, how about this one? Jim Harbaugh to Chicago and Urban to Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Michigan fans would just have their heads explode if they tried to do that. But and Harbaugh to Chicago is interesting. I think Harbaugh is at the high point of his Michigan tenure right now. Like I don't know that Michigan is going to get appreciably better than they are right now. So this would actually be a great time to sell high. But I don't know that he views it that way. So I'm not sure that he's gonna be willing to do that. But that would be interesting if they lose on New Year's Eve, especially if they lose completely non-competitively on New Year's Eve, and then the Bears' job opens up because I don't know when is Black Monday in the NFL this year? When's the last week? It's week 17. So does it spill into January? Like if they potentially fire Nagy. Yeah, if they potentially fire Nagy after week 17, I mean, I'm sure people remember. Anyone old enough to have had a Nintendo and played Tecmo Super Bowl will remember Jim Harbaugh on the Bears, along with Mike Tomczak. That's
it's January 9th is the Saturday. Okay. They have 18 because there's 17 games now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's. I mean, the timing would work. I don't think. I mean, I don't think Ryan Day's going there, and I don't think Jim Harbaugh's going there. But I mean, just the thought of Urban Meyer going to Michigan, like, what could possibly make next year's Ohio State Michigan game more heated? Like that. That's it. That's just the thought of Urban Meyer playing "It's Time for War" in the Schembechler Hall and referring to Ohio State as that school down south. Like, man, sign me up. I'm in for it. Like, I am in for it. However the Ohio State Michigan game plays out next year, like the lead up to that, like I am for it. I cannot wait.
And granted, the drama is there, but I think it would probably diminish the anger and vitriol because there are certainly some Ohio State coaches and players who have a desire to get back at Jim Harbaugh for things he said this
Mhm.
year, and also now things that Mike Gundy has latched on to, talking about Ohio State as a third base program type of thing, and it's like this is starting to spin out of control. And I feel like somebody's going to have to pay for all of these checks being written. And if as we're saying here, if Jim Harbaugh leaves, that would be truly unfortunate for all of the people who want a little bit of vengeance. And I'm not saying 2022 is revenge tour for Ohio State. Certainly would never do that and not put out shirts of that ilk, but it might take some I don't know, so it might lessen the desire for uh, hurt on the other opponent if it's Urban Meyer. But again, it won't be. So let's talk a little bit about recruiting, fellas. Ohio State signed 17, probably signing another one today in Gabe Powers. I'm not sure what time. And I say probably.
Tonight.
I shouldn't.
I think that's
Yeah,
8. I think it's like
yeah.
7 or 8 p.m.
Doing a school thing, and he will be signed, and it'll be an 18-person class for now, and then possibly Hero Canoe and Amari Abor early in January.
Carson Hinsman was supposed to go today,
Mhm.
and he needs more time. I mean, he's certainly not under any obligation to fulfill anybody else's timeline.
Mhm.
So we'll kind of see there. Yeah, there's several other names that potentially just kind of Kristen Miller. I mean, even though I think that just seems like a big troll job at this point, but how many guys can Georgia take? I mean, how many defensive linemen can Georgia take? So you kind of wonder where the numbers sort out there.
Well, and that's just going to be another one where, like how like seagulls and birds will just wait in the McDonald's parking lot for people to give them fries. I feel like a lot of people are just going to be waiting at the transfer portal for a Georgia defensive lineman and Texas A&M defensive lineman, and it's like eventually they're going to have to come out. We'll get some of these, and then we can add them to our program. And I think that's where some more recruiting will be done.
No, and we lost Tom for a second, so let me find.
No, it's good.
We'll just do that, and we'll wait for him, and we'll leave him in the green room for a while if need be. So
let him calm down. So Kevin, Tom, and I released a show today, just a couple of 15 minutes ago, projecting some of the signees, like most likely to be an All-American, first guy to be drafted. So I would like to hear your thought on who will be the highest draft pick among these current 18. Who do you think?
let me get the list in front of me because that's just one of those situations where you cover the team, you cover the recruiting, and then you just can't remember what the
Don't
class
forget somebody.
looks like at that point. So I'm pulling up a commitment list in front of me. Yeah.
While Kevin's pulling that up, I wanted to share a seagull story, and then my internet cut out for some reason. Went to a San Francisco Giants game last year or a couple of years ago at Pac Bell Park, whatever Pac Bell Park is called now, and they the seagulls. There's no seagulls during the game, and as soon as the game ends, the seagulls just descend on the stadium. It is the craziest thing in the world. It's like it was to the point that I wondered if they had some kind of like seagull repellent that they like a noise or something that they played during the game to keep them away. But as soon as the game ended, it was just like the birds, the Hitchcock movie, just descending on the stadium. It was like, run for your lives.
Because it's like all of the nachos, all of the fries on the ground. I mean, we see that going back up to the press box after games. Like the stands are it's a complete mess, and
Mhm.
that's a stadium wide buffet for the birds.
Absolutely. Here's the situation. Since you guys did a show on it, I guess I can kind of talk this through a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There are positions that lend themselves to be drafted higher than other positions. I think that just in terms of who I think might be the most special athlete, it might be Sonny Styles. But where does he fit? And even if is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? Neither of those necessarily lend themselves to being that top pick. Maybe he ends up sliding down by the time it's all said and done, but I don't see him being, somebody who is going to be that pass rusher in the NFL. So I'm going to take him off the list. Wide receiver, I mean, that's, in terms of the strongest group, that's the strongest group. A lot of people, and I've seen in the chat, are saying we'll always go quarterback, but, we don't know what Devin Brown's future could be in terms of when he sees the field or whatever. So, I like CJ Hicks a whole lot. He's a 5-star, but I'm going to say Caden Curry, the defensive end, just because he's the defensive end. I think he's a little further along than Kenyatta Jackson right now. I'm a big fan of Kenyatta Jackson as well, but I will just say Curry, just based on really hedging my bet based on the position that he plays and the value the NFL puts on that.
Do you think Curry is going to be a defensive end? I know
he can move inside. Yeah, he can.
Yeah, I think he's really, really good inside, but he's undersized. And so you look at him and he's the same size as a defensive end, and you would expect maybe he stays there. But I know that early on he was projected as a defensive tackle, never really got defensive tackle sized, and it's kind of just now maybe he's a defensive end. I just continue to call him a defensive lineman because I'm not sure exactly where he ends up. I do think, and I think Tom and I have talked about this, with the multiple fronts that Jim Knowles will use, I think he can fit in as that 3-tech strong side edge type of thing where he can play defensive end, but also be a little bit bigger than your average guy and maybe still hold the edge there. Tom, did you go with Sonny Styles?
I did. I thought he could be the Isaiah Simmons type of guy, and as football sort of shifts to the more positionless kind of model for defense, that position might, that type of player might be in more demand 3 years from now than he is now. So that was my pick. But I think there are probably 5 or 6 different people you could pick and say, this guy fits that type of, does one of the corners turn into the next Jeff Okudah? Does one of the defensive ends turn into the next Chase Young? Like you have seen Ohio State guys at a bunch of different positions go top 5, top 10 in the, I think Tony, you picked Devin Brown, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think, does Devin Brown turn into the next great quarterback? You have seen guys at all of these spots. Like don't pick a running back because that's not where the league is trending right now. But one of these guys turns into an elite tackle. Like, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Go ahead and take them.
I see DK saying that was my super chat from last week. Quit stealing my material, Gerd. For one, once you submit anything to this show, it becomes our material. It becomes our property. So just know that. For 2, I honestly, I did not remember that, so I apologize. But again, in 3, that's ours. Elsu Zabo, my evil sister put popcorn all around my head while I slept on the beach. I awoke to dozens of seagulls swooping down on my face, still traumatized.
That's some fantastic sibling behavior right there. That is world-class siblinging right there. Unless you are an only child, you recognize that behavior and you go, yeah, I can respect the game.
I don't know that that's an evil sibling. An evil sibling would have been like, hey, you know what's fun? Let's bury you in sand. And then they bury you in sand, and then they do the popcorn all over, not just around your face, but I'm talking like the Washington State popcorn, man, where it's just like, piles on your face and seagulls are pecking at you. And that would be evil. This is just playful. This is a little, a tinge of evil, but not full on evil.
I don't know. It sounds pretty evil to me, regardless. I mean, the burying and everything else. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Creepshow the movie and some other stuff going on there, and that nearly traumatized me, and I'm not one that just reacts to scary, gory movies. But I was young enough when Creepshow came out. That one, I took pause for a minute.
Didn't that creep show also have like the monster in the box thing? One of those creep shows, or was that something? There was like a little hairy monster that was in a wooden crate.
Maybe I remember the cockroaches, and that thing was
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
was
that's bad.
gross. That was
That's bad.
gross.
Yeah, no, those '80s movies and late '70s movies are not for the faint of heart. Mindy Van Sickle, Jack Sawyer playing the Leo role. That's what we're all expecting in this Jim Knowles defense, where the Leo is the weak side defensive end, can certainly stay on the end, play defensive end, will move around. Not unlike, as I've mentioned before, what Will Smith did in 2002, 2003 for Ohio State, would get up and move around a little bit. This is something that then they can use him in different ways as a linebacker, as a kind of a blitzing linebacker, and just another way to get some pass rush in there. And I think that's because we had even talked about if they go 3-4, Jack Sawyer kind of becomes an outside linebacker in that, and we'll get to see him do some more things. And so I think that's a good fit. Super chat from Big Nasty. Do y'all think Ryan Day will leave? I'll go first. He will eventually leave. All Ohio State coaches eventually leave. That's what they do. So yes. Now, when I don't foresee him leaving anytime in the next 4 to 5 years, and I don't know that you can really project much beyond that. However, this is the time of greatest change in college football we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder if it's just, you know what, I don't want any more change. I'm going somewhere else. But then if you do that, you are also creating change. So Ryan Day has talked about how he just wants things to settle down. That way you can start to, like, he doesn't even want to get rid of the early signing day anymore, because it's like, well, at least we know it now.
Right.
If we change it again, now we're dealing with some more unknowns. He simply wants things to settle down. That way you can figure out how to handle all of these different things individually and go from there. And so he doesn't talk like somebody who is looking to leave. He is talking like somebody who is just, let's let the dust settle, and it may take a year or two, and then figure out how to go from there. He doesn't sound like he's somebody who is looking to leave to me. So I would say, yes, still here in the next 4 to 5 years. And I don't really, Ohio State coaches don't stay more than, I mean, Urban was 8 years, 7 years. Tressel was 10. You know, I expect Day to be here longer than Urban was, but also if he's not, I mean, it's rare.
Yeah, and you know, we talked earlier about Urban Meyer not wanting to go out on the note that Urban Meyer went out on in the NFL. Do you think Ryan Day wants his last legacy at Ohio State to be losing to Michigan and getting Jim Harbaugh dragging him in a post-game press conference and saying he was born on third base? And like, do you think there's anything in the world that Ryan Day wants more than to take this program, continue to make it his own, and absolutely rub Jim Harbaugh's face in the turf for 60 minutes next year? I can't imagine Ryan Day going out like that at Ohio State. And, you know, it's not, I know Justin Fields is in Chicago, but it's not like the opportunity to coach the Chicago Bears is like the greatest opportunity in all of sports. The Bears are just basically bigger city Lions. Like, how good are the Chicago Bears as a franchise? Like, I know Tony's shocked. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Chicago Bears record over the years, and you can tell me how.
Start with 1985.
Yeah, 1985. Yeah, absolutely. In 1985, I had not even yet asked for that electric football set we referenced earlier. So
Shut up, kid.
it's been a minute. Yes, they've won double-digit games once since 2012, 3 times since 2006. I mean, you know, they've won the division once, twice since 2006, once since 2010. Like, it's just, it's fine, but it's not, you know, that's not an organization that looks like it's super fantastically set up, and you've got all the stadium nonsense going on with them right now. Like, that's not like, well, I certainly couldn't pass this up. This is a team I grew up rooting for or whatever. Like, I don't see Day leaving right now. To your point, like, yeah, he could leave at some point. He is going to leave at some point. He is not going to coach until the heat death of the universe. He's an Ohio State football coach. He's going to get fired at some point. And, everyone, and, not, let's not say fired. Let's say leave under circumstances that are perhaps not entirely his choosing. How about that? Let's reframe that conversation just a little bit so we're really, really technically correct. He will probably leave the job at some point under circumstances that are not entirely his choosing. So yes, he will leave at some point, but I would be floored if he left right now. I don't really see it, because you don't want to go out the way that he would be going out if he left this offseason. And that just it's not like Ohio State football is broken. I know everyone wants to run around and tell you the sky is falling right now every time a commit signs at literally anywhere else or delays their commitment in some way. Like, everyone wants to tell you the sky is falling, but that's just because Ohio State fans haven't had to deal with, losing to Michigan in a decade. So no one remembers what this is like. You're not going to win literally every one of your games. Nick Saban loses games occasionally too. He even loses games to his rival. In fact, he loses games to his rival more often than Ohio State loses games to their rival, if you can believe that. So yeah, I don't really see, like, the Day stuff just seems like people kind of chasing headlines right now. And I don't doubt that the Bears would like to get Ryan Day. I just kind of doubt that the Bears could get Ryan Day.
Yeah, that's the thing. But everybody in Chicago can say, well, Ryan Day's the number one target. So, I could sit there and say that when I was in my late teens or whatever, that Elizabeth Shue was my number one target. That didn't mean that I was going to land Elizabeth Shue. So, it doesn't matter. The Bears they're cute. Sorry, Tony, but whatever. God, just talk about, you can't even hang your hat on the Blackhawks right now after everything that's gone on there in Chicago. It's just a mess over there. And and Tom's right with the stadium mess, and that roster just it's ugly. And I can say that as a Cowboys fan, and I know the Cowboys are having a good year this year, but they'll find a way to fudge it up. So it's no. But Ohio State football coaches, not only do they not stay forever, they never get to leave on their own terms, really, is what it comes down to. So, you could be the guy to break it and sit there and say, well, I'm out of here before, something happens. But, it really can be a coaching graveyard, because you look and everybody kind of leaves under whatever terms. And I'm not going to bring up the terms of what happened with this coach or that coach, because it'll really darken the mood around here. But, it is what it is. It's not a case of where, would Urban still be coaching at Ohio State if things hadn't kind of gone the way that they had? How does that all fit into the whole narrative?
With NFL media and from NFL cities, they view college football as a minor league, and it's just like, we can have whatever, any coach we want. We'll take whatever we want from the colleges, because why? College is silly. This is NFL is where it's at. And like, college coaches are signing $90 million deals. I think they can manage just fine on their own. And Day even said this week, like, yeah, he's coming back. And then when he didn't necessarily say he was coming back, and then somebody, I think it was Clay Hall or maybe Down to Barry, said, so are you saying you're coming back? You'll be here next year, whatever? And he just laughed and said, I hope so. Like, yes, I thought I was clear. I'm going to be back, and Chicago will have a new coach by then. And so I don't see Chicago
Tony,
being,
You're a Bears fan. How many times have the Bears finished higher than third in their division? Bear in mind, there have only been 4 teams in their division since 2002 and only 5 before then. How many times have they finished higher than third in their division since 1992? Mike Ditka's last season.
So that's what, 30 seasons, including
30
this
seasons,
one. Higher than third, I would say probably. And the reason I'm not a great Bears fan is because the Bears have not been great. So I would say 7.
Oh, no, you're a hater. 8 times higher than higher than third in their division since 1992. Yes, Kevin saying that the Bears must have bullied me when I was in grade school. I remember Sean Landetta trying to punt the ball and the wind blowing it and him completely whiffing on the punt. Yes, I remember that. The Bears did bully me in grade school. You know what? But they've been trashed since then. So I hope they've learned a lesson.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's
I want to drop
I
in a little something here
yeah.
real quick that over on the Ask the Insiders board, Bill Green talking about former Ohio State quarterback Jack Miller saying, I'm going to just paraphrase here. If you're not a member of Buckeye Scoop, sign up, find out all the information. It appears that Florida could be a destination for him, especially with the departure of Emory Jones, that
Hmm.
Jack Miller could go to, or probably will go to Florida and will push Anthony Richardson for that starter's position.
Hmm.
That's interesting to me because it seems like this is Anthony Richardson's job, and although that's in Dan Mullen's offense, which
Mhm.
you need that running guy, and this Jack Miller in Napier's offense that's interesting to me. That'll be interesting to watch because I do wonder what now happens with Anthony Richardson, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go and bring in a couple of quarterbacks from the portal because they may be. I wouldn't be shocked if Richardson leaves at some point as well as they try to figure out what they are in this offense. How much is the quarterback run used at Louisiana? Let me just see
Well,
here if unless
Levi Lewis is their starting quarterback. Completed 60 for the Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns this year. Completed 60% of his passes, 2,647 yards, 19.4 picks. So they are a somewhat run heavy offense. He had 88 carries,
yeah
269 yards, 3.1 yards a carry, five touchdowns. So that's a decent amount. That's like maybe about as much as Justin Fields ran at Ohio
yeah
State, maybe give or take. So not, this is not Braxton Miller by any means, but you're going to run the quarterback some. But he's also someone who I think adjusts his offense a little bit to his personnel, so you don't necessarily always see exactly that type of numbers. I think Napier is going to do a pretty good job at Florida. That's a fascinating fit to me because all along I've sort of assumed, well, Jack Miller, Arizona guy, like look at UCLA, look at Arizona, look at Arizona State, one of those schools out west. Florida is a really interesting fit to me. So I'll be intrigued to see how that goes for him if that's where he lands.
Yeah, and,
yeah
and
Levi
UCLA just got Dylan Gabriel, the former
Yeah,
UCF
yeah,
quarterback. So things there.
yeah.
I kept hearing Ole Miss being a potential landing
Mhm,
spot for Jack Miller with a sister that goes
mhm.
there. I mean, like I think there's some family
mhm.
ties into the area. So I was kind of shocked too when I saw Bill Green's report about
Yeah.
Florida as well. So interesting report over there on the Ask the Insiders board.
Hmm. What about because I was this is one of the things I wanted to talk about, like with all of these quarterbacks, is there a quarterback that has transferred that you feel is in the best situation? I mean, um,
I
Quinn
really want
Ewers
to
at
see Adrian
Texas.
Martinez at K State.
I mean, well, see, the thing about that is so bizarre to me because yeah, sure, geographically it fits. Kansas State quarterbacks, don't they have to be safe with the ball? Aren't they like reliable and not explosive, not impressive, but you know what you're going to get from them? And that's not Adrian Martinez necessarily. Like maybe here's the thing. We've talked about how Adrian Martinez has held Scott Frost back. Maybe we've got this wrong. Maybe it has been Scott Frost that has been causing all of these turnovers and issues with Adrian Martinez, Tom. I've just blown your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the issue, but one thing that I think is a piece of this question with him is like that's a very intriguing fit to me. But remember, he missed the Iowa game and he had shoulder surgery. Just it was like right before Thanksgiving, he had shoulder surgery, and so shoulders, elbows are one thing, shoulders are another. Like shoulders can be a big issue for a quarterback if it's, that's not something that everyone comes back from. So that's something I think you got to at least keep in mind. But I'm intrigued to see what he can do under Chris Kleiman because this is a little bit of okay, we're going to run a little scientific experiment. Adrian Martinez is now with a different coach. Scott Frost is now with a different coach. Let's see. Maybe we can figure out which one the problem is, or if they both succeed, it may have just been like one of those like, yeah, well, just didn't these two didn't mesh, but they can succeed without each other. I do feel like Nebraska's very much due for a bounce back season next year. They've recruited, I think, somewhat well, but not fantastic. But if you looked at the recruiting rankings for the Big Ten, the top 7 teams were the 7 teams in the East, and the bottom 7 teams were the 7 teams in the West. So you don't need to recruit that well to be one of the best recruiters in
Sun
the
goes up,
West.
sun goes down.
Well, and I wonder if this is going to be one of those years where maybe Scott Frost tries to do what Mel Tucker did last year and really utilize the portal more. They've signed 14 guys so far in this class, and are they looking to add guys add some experience, because that certainly worked very well for Michigan State. And I saw Max Johnson committed to Texas A&M, the former LSU quarterback. I don't know that, because Texas A&M also has they've got quarterbacks that they like. They lost Zach Calzada, but they have a young guy, a 5-star guy that they also like. I think that Max Johnson just doesn't do it for me. It's not pleasant to watch. I don't know if it's because he's a lefty, maybe, but Keaton Slovis, where will he end up? Bo Nix, where will he end up? Even Zach Calzada. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like it. I like the unknown about college football. It's new every year because of recruits, but now it's also new every year because of the portal.
That's why
What's that?
thought I read this morning. I thought I read that Bo Nix was going to Indiana.
Oh, really?
I'm not positive on that, but I read it somewhere. But everything you read on the internet is true, absolutely true. Bonjour. I mean, we don't know about that, but I read that somewhere this morning.
Interesting.
Boy, to go from Auburn.
I'm looking to see if I can find
Indiana.
it elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Yeah, Sean Shivers wants Bo Nix to join him in Indiana.
Yeah, I read it somewhere. I hadn't seen anything official, but that would it would be interesting. And then of course you have to wonder what that means for Michael Penix Jr.
Well, he's already in the portal.
He's already gone. He's at Washington. Yeah,
that's right.
Michael Penix is at Washington
Can't
now.
keep track of all this stuff. Can't keep track of all the super chats. Can't keep track of all the quarterback movement. It's just.
Well, let's hit this super chat. It's very important. Hearing aid guy 69. Tony, you're a handsome stud. Thank you. I appreciate that. Super chat from Jordan Kapler. What team would you want to be the head coach of?
Swedish bikini.
See, I was going to say, and is this like roller derby? Is this football? Is this, and I couldn't even do that before Kevin went full Kevin Noon.
If we're going to go roller derby, I'm going to go Cleveland Guardians, because my understanding is they've got a whole bunch of new money in the roller derby budget up in Cleveland after a settlement with the baseball Cleveland Guardians. So I've got to imagine you've got a little bit of a monetary edge, so that's going to set you up to look real smart in your roller derbying.
My answer is something that I will be doing. I'm going to be, once again, I will be the head coach of the North Texas Mean Green once EA brings their college football game back. And I don't know what head coach, what teams you guys are going to be choosing, but when we are running our dynasty against each other online for everybody to see, I will have the Mean Green, and I will have to go to the portal probably pretty early on, get some quarterback, get some receivers, but I have the formula, and I cannot be stopped. So
I always play with Navy. I will just grind you. I will just grind you into the dust. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be entertaining to watch, but I will win. And it will. This is not about fun. This is not about entertainment. This is about pain. This is about this is going to be like a Werner Herzog live stream where it's just going to be dark. It's going to be black and white. It's just going to be just about the pain of life. And in the end, I will be triumphant.
And now I will run the ball again.
You see, I'd probably go for like a UTSA just because I'm a front runner like that, and just I don't know. I always wanted a team. I wasn't concerned about anything other than their playbook had verticals. As long as I had a couple of 3-vert plays in my playbook, I was fine with that because I was always going to just beat everybody up top.
Well, that's what you think. But I will also be recruiting corners from the transfer portal as well. Anything else that we've got going on in these questions? How many minutes per quarter? 8. That's the standard that I would always go with, because you got to give us a little opportunity to put up some stats. 7 is a little too short.
Yeah. It tends too long, because then it's like you get into like games take more than an hour sometimes, and that's too much. So, and Tony's going to be super simming to the end when he's playing, because it's like, no, too much fullback. Sorry, I can't handle it.
Again, Tom, all I'm going to do is run punt block against your offense and keep one deep safety, and I'll just stand back and see if somebody breaks free, I will get them before they get to the first down marker.
Do we have our Twitch channel set up yet?
No, but we've got 2 years to do it, like a year and a half.
I'm just making sure. I want that thing to be fully monetized by that point, because it's going to be epic. I mean, it's going to be something when the games actually start, and it probably will be not safe for work either.
Well, and then we'll also have to stream the recruiting. It'll get very dry. It'll be very pedantic and all of that stuff. And I can't wait. Honestly, I cannot wait. So everybody look forward to that one. And when we have a Twitch channel, make sure you subscribe. But I don't know how to do that, or when we'll do that, or even how to actually stream any of that stuff. So, but it will eventually happen.
El Suzabo says she loves Werner Herzog. Tom, I would have never guessed. Just because I hang around with cretins doesn't mean that I am a cretin. Come on.
I love yeah, exactly. Trust us. We hang out with him. He's a cretin. I mean, the hockey coach veneer, don't be fooled. All right. He's as much Juggalo as Kevin is. So there you go.
I was going to say, as soon as I get off of this show, I'm going to go get my Fago.
Yeah, this is Fago right here. Did I not make that clear earlier? Yeah.
Is there any part of the show where we're still doing a show right now? Is there anything we can talk about related to Ohio State football and the Rose Bowl? They play Utah this year, in the Rose Bowl. I did think players talking like they're enthused, so that's good. I know everybody was wondering after that loss, like, gosh, you just lost to Michigan. How can you even go on? How can you stand and look at yourself in the mirror anymore and continue to practice knowing that you have failed everybody, that you are, in fact, a complete failure? But it does seem that they have picked themselves up by their cleat straps and will decide again to play football once more. Tyreek Smith said wants to play once more with his brothers. And again, the motivation sure seems to be there. So I think maybe I was going to say that question has been answered, but that question is never answered until the game is played. And that's when you know whether you wanted to be there or the SEC didn't want to be there. That's how we know that answer. But we can't tell you that until after we see the game. Then it all becomes clear on who really didn't want to be there. Troy V, oh my God, ICP got hit in the head with a 2-liter of Fago at one of their shows once. Ouch. Only one.
What's more shocking, that Troy V got hit with the 2-liter, that he was an ICP show?
Well, I think once you're at the show, you understand that you are going to be hit in the head.
There's assumed risk.
Yes, exactly. I mean, sure, it's at the bottom of the ticket. Yeah. I mean, come on. Just be glad it was only one.
The real funny thing is, do you know where the gathering of the Juggalos is?
Ohio.
Every year?
Is it like the running of the Juggalos? Isn't that in Spain?
Yeah, the running of the Juggalos, maybe. It's at Legend Valley in Thornville in lovely Licking County. It is close enough. Legend Valley is close enough that when they have I think there's an EDM festival or something, you can literally hear the bass from my house. Like, you can't hear anything else, but you can hear the bass from my house. It's like 24 minutes away is according to the maps that I just pulled out. 24 minutes away. That's by car, not by foot. You can hear
add 30 or 50,000 to your home value.
Yeah, well, it's only one weekend a year. And I don't recall seeing Juggalos walking around downtown Granville at any point. So I think we've successfully we keep the drawbridge up around the moat that weekend. But yeah, it's the gathering of Juggalos is just a little east of Columbus, out by Buckeye Lake.
Yes, I think it used to be in Michigan, that like a campground or something, and Obviously, they moved it to Ohio for many reasons, of which we don't need to get into. Um, Boy, here's a question from Nick. If Ohio State loses to Michigan next year, are you scared how the fan base is going to react and respond to Ryan Day? Uh, I'm not scared of any reaction. I would be concerned for it won't be a good reaction, and
Mhm.
it would be a reaction that we haven't seen since the Cooper days, because you haven't seen 2 losses in a row
Mhm.
since John Cooper. And you're talking about a generation of people who this would be the first time they've ever experienced this. And we've seen how they reacted after 1 loss. After 2 losses, I'm guessing they would not be catatonic, but at this point, oh, so this is what life is. This is how it is now. We just always lose to Michigan. Day has to go. And we've already seen clamoring from some, not the most logical, level-headed people in terms of Day must go, but you lose to Michigan twice, and it starts to make that call a little bit louder, Kevin, especially if you do it at home.
Yeah, if you do it at home, I mean, Michigan is losing a lot of its top players from the team that won here in 21. If you sit there and you get called out and, the third base and it's team soft and blah, 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 and you follow it up by laying another egg, and I don't care if you lose it by 1 or 21, I mean, it's going to be ugly. I'm going to call in sick on that Sunday because I'm not going to want to read the Ask the Insiders board or anything like that. Um, Granted, there were people that were ready to fire him after this game, just truthfully. And if he doesn't upend his staff and do this and do that and say 90 Hail Marys or whatever, I mean, it's all going to go straight to pot. So it's something that I have, many days to maybe ponder upon. It's way premature for me to come out and call a score for what I think that game is. I think Ohio State will probably be in much better shape to win that one, even if there is snow on the ground. I think Ohio State is going to have to sit there and, if anything, worry about keeping its emotions in check. It's going to come out, and I don't think that we're going to be talking about this in 340 whatever days.
Yeah, I would agree. And partly because of what Lisa Sims is saying here, like Ryan Day will never let that happen. Our team is going to smash them next year. Then the next comment is, I look at how Ryan Day reacted to when they lost to Clemson in 2019 and then smashed them last year. That Clemson loss was as much a part of their fire as any Michigan game. That was their focus. They wanted Clemson again, and they spent time thinking about that and working towards that, and that was the goal. And then when they got there, and this was the same team, sort of, that played Alabama and was not equipped to face Alabama, but they went and defeated Clemson, and that was the culmination of an entire year of want and work. And so, yeah, we've seen that proof before, and I there's no reason to expect Michigan to win again next year. For one, it's at home. For 2, Ohio State returns a bunch, and for 3, Michigan doesn't. And I'm still interested to see what happens with Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy and that whole thing, because there may only be one of them there next year.
Yeah, that's real interesting because, I mean, Cade McNamara just got a big deal, a big NIL deal with Tom Brady's company, which is like, boy, that's really interesting because JJ McCarthy is the guy who I feel like is the future of that program and gives them a higher ceiling. But, are those guys going to be willing to split snaps again next year? Or is Harbaugh going to default to Cade McNamara and kind of keep the status quo? It's like, well, he got us the college football playoff last year. Will JJ McCarthy be okay with kind of being a bit player again next year? Is he going to want to be the starter? That's going to be real interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I'm looking here from Uncle Rico. If Day was born on third base, where does that put Marcus Freeman? I think we need to separate Marcus Freeman from this whole conversation, because none of that is anything Marcus Freeman had said. However, if you want to talk about Marcus Freeman saying that he made a mistake by coming to Ohio State as a football player, then that is something we can talk about, where He didn't make a mistake by coming to Ohio State to play football. He could have been playing football for Charlie Weiss instead.
Mhm.
How would that have gone? Or coaching under Charlie Weiss, which would have been even worse. So I think he made the right decision by playing football at Ohio State. I think he made the right decision by accepting the head coaching job
Mhm.
at Notre Dame and trying to pump up the fan base by writing that you're glad you didn't make the wrong decision second time in a row, Tom. To me, unnecessary.
Well, that's what coaches do. You're recruiting for that school, and so you're going to say what you need to say to recruit for that school. I mean, go back to Jim Harbaugh being at Stanford and absolutely slagging on Michigan for everyone being in general studies and pretending that they're the
That
Harvard
was
of
true.
Midwest. What's that?
But that
Well, I
was
mean, it's
true.
true. Yeah, yeah, it's true. But now, now he goes to Michigan, and now it's no longer true because he needs it to no longer be true. So, yeah, I mean, that's just what coaches do. And go back through Marcus Freeman's career. How did Marcus Freeman get his first Power Five defensive coordinator job? Through Daryl Hazel, who was a connection through Jim Tressel. How did he get his second defensive coordinator job? Through Luke Fickell, who was a connection through Jim Tressel. Like his whole career has been based on the fact that he played at Ohio State. So obviously that was not a mistake because that's what got him to where he is right now. But when you're recruiting, like you're recruiting against Ohio State, what's he gonna say? Like, no, you could also go to Ohio State and you're gonna try. You should go to Ohio State and maybe someday you could be the head coach of Notre Dame. Like if you're the head coach of Notre Dame, you're not going to say that because you want you guys to go to your school. So like whatever. This is one of these things I have a lot of trouble getting too worked up over because it's like, yeah, he's recruiting right now. What do you want him to say?
Yeah, it's
But
not like it's analytics or anything, but you totally get worked up over.
but this is something he wrote. It wasn't a question he was
Yeah,
asked. Like this is something he
yeah,
He
chose
volunteered it. I mean,
chose
it
to
was
say.
yeah.
Yeah,
mhm,
He was not painted into a corner or anything like
mhm.
that. He volunteered it. He thought, hey, this is going to be something great to write. I'm going to throw red meat to the base. But I don't know.
Yeah. But
I don't
he's a
sit
new
there
head
and
coach.
I haven't deleted Marcus Freeman's number from my phone. I'm not all aghast by this, but I think it was certainly. I think it was a misstep. How about that? It was a misstep.
I demand an apology.
Eh, I don't. I don't. I mean, whatever. Like it's just of the thousands of things that coaches say during recruiting, like that doesn't even really move the needle for me, unless you want to interpret it as I hate where I am right now, and the only reason I am where I'm right now because of Ohio State connections. Just think if I had gone to Notre Dame, I could have climbed up that Charlie Weiss coaching tree and maybe been the assistant offensive coordinator at Florida Atlantic now. Maybe that's what he meant by it. I don't know.
I'd rather be in Florida than Indiana myself. So
Mm,
I think that follows.
there you go.
Super chat from Jordan Kapler. Is Cade McNamara Michigan's Stetson Bennett? That's a pretty interesting
Mm-hmm.
comparison. But I don't think. I think one of those guys. It's just I have trouble imagining them doing this again next year. JJ
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy knows he's played too much this year to think he should only get that much playing time next year.
Mm-hmm.
Cade
Yep.
McNamara has led Michigan to the playoffs. There's no right way he views himself as needing fewer snaps. If anything, he would look at the mistakes that JJ McCarthy has made in games that we've played and games we lost. And if I would have been playing, then maybe we win those games. And so I don't think neither of these guys feels like they should be taking fewer snaps next year. And so this is going to be interesting to watch. And Kevin, I'm not sure that like, do you think they're both there next year in October?
No, no. But I don't know which one would be gone. Because you're right. Cade McNamara leads them to the playoffs. JJ McCarthy probably is the future. Probably is more of what Harbaugh and Gaddis want to see out of the quarterback position. I don't know how you can have both of them and run I mean, a second year of a Stanley Jackson, Joe Germain, and they're not, that different in their skill sets as those two were, but there are some differences. I don't see how that's going to work out. I think that somebody is going to leave It may not be until after spring to kind of see where things kind of sort out. But wow, I wouldn't want to be in on that conversation to explain to McNamara we're going with the other guy, and McCarthy on the other side. I mean, I think McCarthy probably is the right answer there, but I don't know how you make that move.
And that's been Georgia's problem with sticking with Stetson Bennett. But again, is it a problem? You're in the playoffs. And so that's what you've got to figure out: is making the playoffs the goal, or is winning it all the goal? And if you can make it, then you can win it. And so it kind of gets back to the analytics part that we started the show with. Analytics would tell you to make the move. Coaching conservatism would tell you, but this is how we got here. Let's stick with this. This is what we know. And so I don't know how that's going to work out. But I also know that it would probably behoove both players to want to know an answer before spring. That way you can land at the next spot. And we'll start wrapping up here. We've gone for an hour and a half. I want to touch on these last two things here. Rowboat, nice camber. Why can't Ryan Day make the necessary leap and acumen to understand he shouldn't be calling the offensive plays? I don't agree with that. I think he's one of the best play callers in the nation. Does he get a little pass happy? Yes. Is that also could Kevin Wilson kind of dial him back some? Yes. Does he? No, but a lot of that is also RPOs where it's a two-way call and the defense dictates whether that's a run or a pass. And so I think he will look back on this year. What could I have done more? What could I have done differently? But they have run the ball plenty and they have thrown the ball plenty. It just depends on what kind of offense they have, what kind of quarterback they have. They've led the Big Ten in rushing with Justin Fields as the quarterback. They've led the Big Ten in passing with Dwayne Haskins and C.J. Stroud. So, like, play calling, I don't think is – Ryan Day as the play caller is not an issue for me. I don't know if either of you guys have any issues with him as a play caller.
I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me, but they were like number 3 in the nation in yards per pass attempt this year. They're relatively high in yards per rush attempt. I think they're number 1 or number 2 in offense and SP plus this year. Like, I mean, the offense is not the issue. I think whatever it takes, just let Ryan Day cook with the offense. Like I think he is. You're sort of getting the sense that he is taking his hands off of the side of the ball that he needs to take his hands off the side of,
right?
Which is the defense. You're bringing in Jim Knowles. Like, that's the side of the ball where he's probably more involved than he needs to be, and you're seeing negative results as a result of it. If he's going to just let Jim Knowles cook, then let Ryan Day cook, and I think you're going to get pretty good results on both sides of the ball there.
Yeah,
Nick Saban's involved in the Alabama defense. Nick Saban doesn't just let Pete Golding do everything. Like, you can be the head coach, and if you're good at your side of the ball, be involved in that as well.
To use a TV term, I think that Kevin Wilson and some of the offensive coaches need to make sure they have a little bit more producer interrupt just to sit there and maybe keep things on track of, hey, we can run the ball too, but, Ryan Day ultimately is the head coach, and you could bring in a play caller and Ryan Day is still going to be, the chef in that kitchen and be like, no, this is what we're going to do. So I don't even know why you would want to sit there and have the pretense that you're going to have a play caller. This is, Ryan Day is not the issue in terms of it. He does get a little too pass happy at times. I do think that we see him retreat to certain play calls when the chips are on the table. But then again, we saw that with Urban. We saw that with Tress. I mean, it's not something that is unique to Ryan Day. It's not a deficiency in Ryan Day's overall resume. So to say that, leap and acumen, I can't disagree more with Row the Boat, Nice Camber on that. I mean, I can say that, yeah, sure, there's some disappointments in the Oregon game and in the Michigan game that the offense wasn't able to get certain things done. But I think a lot of that, too, has to fall down to execution more so than the play calling.
Yeah, well said. And then the last thing here from Lisa Sims, I think that Ryan Day finally is starting to really get the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry because he was pretty much an outsider that we have managed to turn him into a Buckeye fan, and now he hates them. He now understands what it is like to lose to Michigan, and that's something he could only talk to other people about. He's never experienced it, and now that he has, he can share that with others, and he can let that drive him. And you have a team full of people who have now lost to Michigan, and we'll see how that motivates them. But it used to just be legend for everybody in that building, and now they know it as their own truth. And now it's up to them to respond and not let it happen again. If it really sucks as much as they say it does, you can do something about it, and you have an opportunity to next year, assuming Michigan doesn't decline to play like they did in 2020. That's, but anything else you guys got before we get out of here?
Nope.
I'm going to end on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like Urban Meyer doesn't want to end on what he's done in Jacksonville, let's not weaken the end of the show with a throwaway joke.
Fantastic. We will never throw away a joke here. Want to thank you all for tuning in on your Friday. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Hope you enjoy it if you've taken the last week of this year off, and the last 2 weeks if you're that comfortable.
We have another super chat snuck in.
Oh, all right. Super chat from Nick. Who has the highest ceiling? Kyle McCord, JJ McCarthy, or Drew Aller? Do you expect both McCarthy and McCord to pan out? I'll start. I expect them both to pan out. I expect all of them to pan out because they're going to have opportunity. Mm-hmm. Now, and quarterbacks at Penn State, they can start for 3 or 4 years, as we've seen, because James Franklin doesn't always continue to recruit quarterbacks. Sometimes he forgets to do that, and so they have no other options. So I would go ahead and put Aller in that top 3 in terms of panning out. Who has the highest ceiling? We know Ryan Day picked McCord over McCarthy. It's when you watch McCarthy, he's impressive because he can run. He's got a big arm. He's confident. We know Kyle McCord has confidence. Who has the highest ceiling out of all of these guys? My thought is McCarthy, but he's not the biggest guy either. He's like 6'2", maybe like 200 or whatever. McCord has a little bit more size, but not anything that would push him over the other. I just really like what I've seen out of McCarthy. We've seen McCord start one game against Akron. I don't know that tells us anything, but what we see for both those guys is potential, but also mistakes. So I'll go McCarthy.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable thing to think right now, and because you've seen more from McCarthy than you have from either of the other two. Al, I think all 3 of them, I think there's a pretty good possibility all 3 of them are successful starters, 8, 9 kind of win starters at some point in their careers. I have without a lot of other things to base it on right now, without having seen Aller play in person, seeing McCord, not against good competition really at any point, and McCarthy just kind of, here and there in various games. I think I'm kind of going to default to who's working with the best quarterback coach and who's got the best wide receiver unit. Because, you are not working in a bubble as a quarterback. There are other pieces of the puzzle that you have to, you can't just throw the ball to yourself every time. Like every once in a while that will work, but that's not no one can base an offense around that. So you look at the wide receiver units in those 3 teams right now, you look at the quarterback coaching and the offensive scheme in those 3 teams. I think I'd go with McCord for that reason. But, if you put McCord on Ohio State or you put McCarthy on Ohio State and you put McCord on Penn State and you put Aller at Michigan, I'm probably picking McCarthy for the same reason. I don't think there's a huge gap necessarily between them. I just think the support network at Ohio State is probably a little bit better for a quarterback right now than the other 2 options.
Yeah, I'll go kind of quick here on this one, too, as Toledo just scored on a long touchdown in the Bahamas Bowl in front of 23 people and a small dog. I agree with Tom's statement about having the receivers and everything else. We certainly have seen Penn State have one weapon in Jahan Dotson, which is a tremendous weapon, but maybe not having some of the other weapons and having issues there. We certainly saw in previous years, I'm not talking this year, but I'm talking in previous years where Michigan wasn't able to figure out what it was going to be able to do with guys like Tariq Black and so on and so forth there, DPJ. I think Ohio State has kind of figured out this receiver recruiting and figured out how to coach them up. So I'm going to take whichever quarterback is going to be coached by Ryan Day at this point. I'm going to take whichever quarterback is going to have receivers coached by Brian Hartline. So I'm not saying that the pieces are completely interchangeable, but I think all three of those guys are winners. They're all alphas. Inside joke on that one. So I think they're all going to find success, but I'm gonna take the guy that has the best around him, and that would probably be McCord right now.
Yeah, and McCord will put up the best numbers if all three of these guys are starting, just because of the offense. I was thinking in my head putting each of these guys in Ohio State's offense, and that's why I came up with McCarthy, because obviously McCord is going to have better numbers. Dave Rice, what is Tony's favorite ketchup Christmas dish? Kevin says ketchup nog. Boy, that is bad. Do you know what's better
Now
than?
we're ending our show like Urban Meyer.
You guys know what's better than Thousand Island dressing?
1001 island dressing.
2000 Island dressing. That's 2 parts ketchup, 1 part mayo. Anyway, want to thank you all for joining us today. Seriously, thank you for the contributions. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for watching us here on a Friday afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to go out like winners. Want to wish you all a great Friday, and we will talk to you all later.